Paula Connor here with InsightOut Consciousness Consulting, and this is my Ayahuasca 2019 experience. And I'm, shining light into the darkness. I left on the 7th of January. I spent 13 days in the jungle, the rainforest, in a different area than I was last time. I was there 4 years ago, working with the sacred plant medicine. And so now I have completed 10 sacred ceremonies with the Ayahuasca master teacher plant. So I've got some notes here. This is the beginning of the series, and I'm going to get into what happened in all of the ceremonies. So basically, Ayahuasca is a combination of a vine, which is called ayahuasca. The innards of the vine is smashed, and in a bit I'll get a picture to show you. Actually, I'll do that right now. Let me pause. Okay, so here's I think you can see this. I'm just sharing the ayahuasca here on the screen. So there's the vine you can see in the back, and they get smashed or broken down. And I'm just gonna pause the recording once again. See here, it's put in the basically the big pot. Those are the leaves that you can see on the opposite side, and that's the ayahuasca on there. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's the vine of the plant, which is called ayahuasca, and then the leaves are called chacruna. And the chacruna is actually what allows, that's the one with the DMT, the dimethyltryptamine inside of it. Without the combination of those two plants, the body would not be able to activate the DMT that is in the chacruna plant, because our digestive system, the stomach acid, would basically destroy it. But when those two are blended together, it's very similar how they make the ayahuasca, like maple syrup. They're both put together in a pot. It's done with sacred intention by the curanderos, otherwise known as shamans. They prefer the name curanderos. And they boil basically, or cook the ayahuasca down like maple syrup until it's a very thick brown substance. And I'll show you what that looks like too.
So I'm in the Melaka. This is where we do temple, or this is where we do the ayahuasca. And you can see we have all the mats laid out. Well, this will get cleaned up before tonight. But I wanted to just show you. This is the medicine right here. This is what we drink in here. This is it. It's brown liquid. It really tastes awful. So anyway, see you in a bit.
A little bit about the medicine, what it looks like. Okay, so basically when the ayahuasca and the chacruna is combined, the magic is created through the synergy of those two plant substances, the sacred mixture being blended together. And it's also known, it's got a bunch of other names, Dapa, Yage, Pilde, Ponde, Huasca, and many more. So shamans prefer to be curanderos, as I mentioned before. And when they, at the beginning of the ceremony, as the plant medicine starts to take effect, they start to sing. It's called an icaro. And they sing, which amplifies the experience of the ayahuasca and calls the spirit of it forward. Now, the whole purpose of ayahuasca on the planet is to expand human consciousness and assist the human DNA from expanding by activating codes within the DNA that command the dimensional deployment of our bioelectric body. And basically, this is helping us with our evolution and provides new capabilities, basically an upgrade, so to speak. And it assists with our expansion in consciousness. The ayahuasca experience really provides a cosmic bridge, botanical glandular connection. I'm reading my notes here. That temporarily creates a molecular connection between the plants and the human being. It basically is a shortcut that brings light into it basically takes light to its destiny via the molecular door. Now, 3D, the third dimensional experience that we've basically been experiencing as human beings on the planet is done. It's complete. And we are now ready to expand and move beyond that. and we are moving through a significant shift in our consciousness. Now, my simple definitions of dimensions are levels of consciousness. And here's an example. 3D, third dimensional experience. I'm a body. You basically live a life, you die, and that's the end of that. You might, 95%, interestingly enough, of the human population believe in an afterlife, but only 5% believe in a life before the physical body, which is really interesting. So 3D, third dimension, is I'm a body. Fourth dimension is I'm more than a body. I'm sure life exists on other planets. And then fifth dimensional means I'm multidimensional. I have an existence beyond the physical form. You move beyond polarity, beyond people, by polarity meaning there's right and there's wrong. You move beyond that. You can see multiple perspectives. The universe is teeming with intelligent life, and intelligence takes form well beyond the human body. It can be in feline, in insects, reptilians. Intelligence basically and consciousness can be expressed in geometry, a multitude of different ways. And that we're capable of things much more than we can even comprehend, much more than we can even imagine. Things like telepathy, teleportation, telekinetics, which is moving things with your mind, being able to move energy with your mind, and all the clairs, clear knowing, clear sentience, clear feeling, clairvoyance, clear vision. Those are my simple definitions of dimensions and dimensional consciousness. Christ consciousness is what I basically support. And I don't mean the dude, the human form that walked the planet. I mean by way of being. And I have wonderful teachers, one of them being Paul Selig, who is a conscious channel and medium. And he has guides that he channels. All of his books were completely channeled. All of his workshops were completely channeled. And you have achieved Christ consciousness when you believe and understand that all can be forgiven, that there is nothing that you could ever do that would not be forgiven. And think about that for a second, right? Like if you can imagine, I'm sure you've made choices in this lifetime that you'd be like, "Ooh, wow, man, I would not do that again." Well, imagine you did something 400 lifetimes ago where you made a choice and maybe you murdered somebody. Do you think that you should be punished for that for eternity? Or do you think that, as you look back going, okay, wow, I made that choice based on the information I had at the time? There's a law of cause and effect, karma, right? Otherwise, we begin to understand that we create situations, we create our life, we create our reality based on our thoughts and our choices and the actions that we take. And you must understand the consequences of those actions. So basically, Christ consciousness, as far as I understand it, is that there is nothing that cannot be forgiven. All is forgiven. And basically, like I mentioned before, we are moving beyond the third dimension. We're pretty much in fourth right now. In fact, there's lots of people on the planet that are already living in a fifth dimensional experience, and you can be sat beside them in a restaurant based on your own husband. He's in a different reality. So that's how you can get your head wrapped around the whole idea of parallel realities or parallel dimensions. So we're moving beyond the third dimensional existence of I am just a body. This is really the matter and antimatter merge, right? This is physics. And we're going galactic. So we're going to start having an experience with our star brothers and sisters, which is really cool. Third dimensional experience is, you believe that you're separate from your source. And, that's when you're unconscious, uncomfortable, and unaware, right? That's when people do things that are not considering or considerate of another person, taking the life of another individual as an example. So the physical evolution has ended, the spiritual evolution has begun. And this is the merge of the antimatter and the matter. This is the other aspects of you on the other side of the veil, blending with you in physical form so that we can actually birth miracles on this planet. Because if you take a look around, it's a bit of a shit show. No offense, but we have done a horrible, horrible job in our unconscious unawareness caretaking this planet. So let's get into the benefits of use. Why would somebody want to take ayahuasca? I mentioned it's about expanding your consciousness. There are incredible healing properties. The first time I did this back in 2014, I was in the Amazon jungle in a place about 8 hours north of Iquitos. It took us 8 hours to get there, 4 hours by fast boat, which is certainly not a fast boat, and 4 hours by slow boat. There was no running water. There was no electricity. I'll show a picture actually right now of what my bed space looked like. But we had a tarantula living under the temple. We had a 15-meter anaconda living 150 meters up from our camp. But the curanderos have a very sacred relationship with the anaconda. Actually, that is often how the spirit of ayahuasca first presents herself in the visions, is anaconda. We had, I saw pink dolphins. It was on the river, and I would never go into that water. You can't see anything, but it was rich in minerals, really good for your body. And there was also a corner on a river just up from our camp where we stayed, where the depth of the water was so deep, and it had like whirlpools of water that you could not go on the water, otherwise it would suck you down. So that was really interesting, but that was, as I say, the time before. So healing properties, what happened to me last time is I had this little patch of psoriasis on the back of my head caused from stress. That was patchy. It could dry, even bleed when there was a lot of stress going on in my life, and that completely healed. Notwithstanding that there are spiritual and emotional healing taking place as well. It really is a spiritual catalyzer. It clears spaces of unconscious darkness, untangling knots in our neuro programming. What you can't see before become very, very clear. And I can share with you that in the third ceremony of my first experience 4 years ago, I was transported down into my DNA, and I could see my DNA uncoiling, and I could see pictures and symbols and numbers and information flying, at my face in this vision. And I could see, my cells exploding with light. It was quite profound. The intention when you engage with this sacred plant medicine is that you must be willing to reveal all and not to hide anything behind your back, because this is the whole purpose of it, is to bring light into your subconscious, into the darkness, into your shadows. And then you're shown your truth. Like, you can't hide. You are shown all your shit, all your ego, behaviors that are contributing to this lifetime. You can be shown past lives, which actually happened to me in this recent experience, again in ceremony 3. And you can experience divine presence. And I can say that I also experienced that in ceremonies 3 and 5 in this one. And the time before, I had the Christ actually pop in. But I'll get into that in our next part when I talk about ceremony 1 from both experiences. You discover spiritual connections, spirit guides that you work with, guardian angels, ascended masters, perhaps. And there often is psychic awakenings, or gifts that were laid dormant become activated. If you imagine the way that we communicate today as human beings, we're having a conversation, right? It's limited through language. But if you could connect in with my energy field and really feel how I feel, you would just know. You wouldn't need me to explain anything else, right? So we have limitations with that. And also one of the other benefits is you have an effect of immersing and connecting completely with Mother Earth or Gaia. During ceremony, your 5 senses are opened up significantly. You could have somebody across the temple and hear them like they're right here. Sounds, smells are really expanded. Couple of things I wanted to add is basically, your ego self Your ego is the one that judges, that makes others wrong, that wants to be seen a certain way, that is attached to identity. Your ego will never understand or comprehend the divinity that you are, but your divine self can absolutely comprehend and understand the ego self. It will help you understand the meaning of life, enhance your wisdom, which is only through experience. Your emotional maturity expands. You can have physical healings as well as emotional and spiritual, and also enhance your creativity. So what happens when you consume DMT? We have something called the pineal gland. It's actually referred to as the acorn, you know, on the staff that the Pope uses, the pineal gland. Anyway, when the soul enters the body, dimethyltryptamine is flooded by the pineal gland. So this is something that is created naturally. And when the soul leaves the body is once again flooded with DMT. And this allows you to have an expanded state of consciousness while you're aware, obviously, while you're not, being bored or dying. So dimethyltryptamine is often referred to as a spirit molecule. And in fact, there's a really good documentary if you guys are interested in checking it out a little bit more. Talked about that. During the ceremony, the effects last a lifetime, and often it takes up to a year to integrate what you've learned in those ceremonies. I will say that the visions these are not hallucinogenics. They're not hallucinations that you forget that happened during the ceremony. They are imprinted experiences that are, you can forget stuff that happened because it happened so fast, but it's not for everyone. There are a small percentage of people that are chemically incompatible with the plant medicine, and they not necessarily would come back from the experience, meaning they would remain scrambled. If you're choosing to go and take ayahuasca, there are a number of things that you need to be aware of. So you need to make sure that you're not taking, this is just my experience. I'm not the subject matter expert on it, but based on my experience, I'd be wary of taking ayahuasca when it's not considered a sacred plant in ceremony. If there are a number of people taking it together. In our situation, we had 4 of us were participants in the ayahuasca, and we had 4 curanderos plus an assistant and a guardian. The guardian's job, they do not consume the ayahuasca, but they basically make sure that when you're leaving the temple to use the washroom, because of Purge, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but they basically make sure that you're not wandering off anywhere that you should, because when you are under the influence of DMT, under ayahuasca, your whole reality is completely changed and expanded. So they take care of you when you leave the temple to make sure that you get back in time and that you're okay. The assistant can give you assistance if you need to get to the temple, because they call it méditation. When you're under the influence of DMT, you really can't walk straight. You're like a drunken sailor. And trying to get yourself from the safety of your mat to the washrooms outside of the temple is a huge task in itself. It also makes you feel very nauseous. So let's talk about the purge really quickly, and then I'll end this part 1 as the intro. So the purge is, before you take ayahuasca, you do need to follow a very strict diet. No sugar, no salt, no alcohol, no marijuana. Definitely no magic mushrooms. If you like to play with those, that is not necessarily a good compatible psychedelic with the plant medicine. So no salt, no sugar, no spicy foods. And that's to help clean up your diet, because while you're there, it's a very, very bland diet, pretty much rice, plantain, little mini bananas, eggs. There were chicken and fish in this experience, but I didn't eat any of that. What happens during the purge is, when you vomit or, the back channel is utilized, diarrhea, for lack of a better word, you are not only removing food toxins, but you're removing toxins from every single cell of your body. The medicine moves through your entire body and pulls those toxins in to the digestive system, and very, very common. The first ceremony is incredibly uncomfortable in the stomach area. For me, the first time I did it, it was a lot of pain, and actually 6 days. It took me 6 days to even have a bowel movement, because what had happened is the medicine had found a fear or a blockage in my body. And it was a fear that was like, and what happened, this is what's so cool, because your dreams and your meditations support everything that you experienced in the ceremony to help kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. And what had happened for me was, when I was around 4 or 5 years old, I was cutting through a car park in Toronto with my mother, and there was a blue punch buggy there, and 2 men were having a knife fight. And one of them went to grab me, and I went like that, but somehow my mom managed to get a hold of me. And as I remember this now, I remember her saying, "Thank God we get out of there," because they almost took me. So the stomach is the first place. And this is actually where we hold a lot of our emotional trauma. So the first ceremony, commonly, not with everybody, but very typically, is the stomach area is where it's really, really uncomfortable and quite painful. So for me, first time around, it didn't purge until the 3rd ceremony. This time, I didn't have a problem purging at all. And it's a very, very good, fast, effective way to move energy. And I had no issues with the front channels or the back channels. And when I come back, I will give you a little bit more of a tour on what the location looked like, where I slept, what the washrooms were, what the facilities are, and then we'll start getting into the ceremonies so I can share with you the experience that I had. So I hope that this was a good intro for you. As I say, it's Paula Connor, and I'm with InsightOut Consciousness Consulting. I'm located halfway between Barrie and Aurelia. All of the services that I offer are meant to support your internal world, helping you better manage your energy, manage your stress. Essentially, it's your own mental well-being, your inner landscape, your inner world, so that you can build your EQ and have tools and techniques available to you that you can use to navigate the stressors in your life and when things don't go your way. So I'll get those links hopefully added to the end of this video, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks. Bye.